It from Jeff Sessions after it triggered negative reaction from some student activists. Cabot Phillips is editor-in-chief for campusreform.org and joins me here now. All right, so first of all, the newspaper should be doing what it's doing. It's covering the news. Boy, Jeff Sessions was on the campus of this journalism school. Why wouldn't they cover it? Sessions obviously sparked protests. No surprise there. Why are they apologizing then?
Well, the university paper reached out for a comment from a few students that were at the protest. They used the university's directory to get a hold of the students. They texted them saying, can you comment? They also published a few pictures of the public protest of the event. Students now coming out saying they're traumatized by this and that the fact that the university paper would request a comment from them on their activism and publish photos of them is victimizing them. And getting mad at a journalist for requesting a comment is like going to the doctor and getting mad at them and saying you're victimized when they ask to take your blood pressure or something of that sort. They're just doing their job.
There's political play here, obviously. And a newspaper is supposed to cover the news, not, you know, and certainly by calling up students, that's not making them feel unsafe. That's just trying to get a story. Here's what the school newspaper says regarding student safety and apparently the newspaper's coverage of Sessions protests. Let's put it on the screen. We feel that covering traumatic events requires a different response than many other stories. While our goal is to document history and spread information, nothing is more important than ensuring that our fellow students feel safe. How is it that this coverage has made the students feel unsafe?
Because it's an outrage mob that's demanding that the university paper act differently. When they can come out and say our feelings are more important than your freedom of press, they're more important than people getting information about what we're doing, then it's a dangerous precedent they're setting. This is Northwestern, one of the nation's top universities for journalists, and we're teaching the next generation that they should ignore controversial topics or not cover them the same way if people might have their feelings hurt. And sadly, this is not an isolated incident. We covered something like this at the Leadership Institute's Campus Reform just last month at Harvard. The Harvard Crimson, the student paper there, had to issue a public apology because they dared to reach out to ICE for a comment on a story about detention centers at the border. So this is something that journalists are now under attack simply for trying to do their job and request comment. And also the other ironic thing here is if these student protests had not been covered, then the students would be accusing the paper of doing them a disservice. And now when they are covered, when they give them a chance to respond, and when they publish photos of these public protests, then they say, well, we don't like the way it's being covered. This is wrong. It's the height of hypocrisy.
Yeah, in this day and age, it just seems you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. The Daily Northwestern, by the way, the newspaper, it's separate from the journalism school. So there are people there that work there that don't necessarily go to the school. But here's what it says about its coverage. Some of our staff members who were covering the event used Northwestern's directory to obtain phone numbers for students beforehand and texted them to ask if they'd be willing to be interviewed. We recognize being contacted like this is an invasion of privacy. So is the issue that they used Northwestern's roster? So they accessed Northwestern's telephone lists of its students? Is that the issue?
From what we can tell, the main issue the students have, the grievances they have, are simply that they're being reached out to in the first place, and they're using this as an excuse.
Well, boo-hoo, I hate to tell you, but if you are at a protest and you are a student at a school, you're going to be reached out to, not just by your school's newspaper, but by any journalist.
And it wasn't just some common protest where they're standing outside. That was part of it. They were going into the event, trying to shut it down. They're shutting down speech, and now they're trying to shut down press.
Okay, you cannot shut down speech. I know you try, but you cannot. Cabot Phillips, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. There's an immigration showdown now at the U.S. Supreme Court at this hour. Trump administration making